Welcome to Strength in the Numbers. My name is Andrew Codd, accountant, author, and commercial finance entrepreneur, and it's my job each week to bring you leaders in finance and business and deconstruct with them their real stories, insights, and hard-won lessons into practical advice on the key strengths and qualities you need to remain relevant in accounting and finance today, as well as the steps you can begin to take to elevate the impact you make to have a fun, successful, and rewarding career in accounting and finance. Now let's go over to the show.
Don't feel isolated. Don't stay isolated. You don't know what you don't know. So you need to learn with others. You need to find someone who knows better than you know. And from then really grow and so on. And raise your hand. When there is something wrong, don't stay in your box, right? Just open up and say, hey, there is something wrong. I don't know.
This is just one of the many great bits of advice from today's guest mentor, Jean-Philippe Gauvrit, on today's episode. And it's really great to have Jean-Philippe, who's also known as JP, on the show. We met at a transformation event in London where JP was chairing it. And, you know, having such great experience as a CFO and finance controller, not just within Europe, but 20 years in the Asia Pacific and Japan region, brings such an immense insight into cultural opportunities and challenges and how to build and create great teams and manage change, and also how finance has transformed and is transforming across that period of time. And I really like how he brings it back to the importance of the human side of the equation in those transformations. So look, we go on to deconstruct a number of different areas, the opportunities and challenges of working in new regions and new cultures, the importance of unlearning and reinventing yourself, also how JP got into mentoring and change management, and actually why transformation has sort of changed over that time compared to say 15 years ago, and also the value of partnering with people who have different logic ways and how to deal with some of those reactions. JP shares a couple of memorable anecdotes as well that I think you'll find useful. So look, hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe. We're on all the major platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, and we always appreciate when you recommend the show to friends, and we keep growing our strength in the numbers. So that's enough from me. So without further ado, over to JP and the show. JP, welcome to the show.
Hey, Andrew. Good morning.
Hey, good morning likewise, and it's great to reconnect again. We met at a conference where you were chairing in London recently, but some of our audience may not be as familiar with you. So would you mind maybe briefly going through a summary of your journey in accounting and finance for us?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. So I'm Jean-Philippe Gauvrit. You can call me JP, Andrew. I think it's easier for everybody. I'm currently part of the Nokia finance team. Actually, I've got a rich and long career behind me already as a CFO and finance controller for large corporations. Nokia, Alcatel-Lucent before, and even French companies before. I used to be the CFO for Nokia for the Asia Pacific region. I was based in Singapore, and I had the same role for Alcatel-Lucent in Shanghai before. So I would just define me as a finance generalist, as a manager, and I love to manage teams, to create teams. I have a long background in the international business as well. I spent almost 20 years in Asia Pacific. I am a coach, you know this, Andrew, and I love developing talents and helping people to develop themselves. And just to close about myself, over the past years, I had developed a personal interest in change management, transformation, and also about the impact of new technologies, AI, RPA, whatever, on our professions and on people.
Well, JP, that's a great journey, and there's loads in there we can talk about. My first one, and I think it's a common question that comes up a lot, is we're increasingly being asked to specialize in finance, pick an area, and just get really good at it. But you mentioned there you see yourself as a generalist, and it looks like you've had a very rewarding, fulfilling career in your journey there. So, I mean, do you still think there's a role for a generalist, or do we need to specialize? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do think so, and I would say more than ever. I love this idea, at least for me, to be a generalist. Actually, my own area of expertise lies in projects, project controlling, project management, and so on. This is really what shaped my career. But yes, I think that with all the changes we are experiencing and the complexity of the environment, both are valid. You can be an expert in, I don't know, tax, accounting, treasury, whatever, and find your own way. But I think if you are on the more on the generalist side, it will help you to be more connected, maybe with some parts of the business, to be more open. I had the opportunities to do actually a lot of different things, even outside of finance. For instance, risk management, bid management, even totally different things. And at the end of the day, it's all about ourselves or yourself. Is some people feel more comfortable in expertise, some people much more interested in new things. So you have to find your own way, right? That's
Yeah, I think that's the key here, isn't it? It's finance is a very portable area of expertise, and you just mentioned sort of risk management, bids. We can take it to a lot of places, and I think in this day and age, it's probably about finding ourselves where our strengths are, what we enjoy doing, because that will bring the best out of us. If we happen to pick up a load of general skills along the way, great, but we will end up finding something. And I'd love to get on some of the items you mentioned there around the coaching and the change management, the creating teams as well, JP, because again, it seems like you might have found your way there based on the journey. But before jumping into that, I did want to sort of touch on an element. You're French by origin, nationality, and you go and you travel to cover Asia Pac, based out of Singapore. I think you mentioned Shanghai as well. But what was the biggest sort of challenge or maybe opportunity you found in covering such a region and traveling so far away from home?
great question. I think I felt a lot of excitement in having to reinvent myself every day. It's about it. Meaning when you meet people from different culture, from different way of working, and you have to reinvent yourself. You have to go and meet people. You have to learn and unlearn some of the things you learn when you were, for instance, in France or in Europe, right? And find your own way with the people. It cannot be only about yourself. So I mentioned I stay around, say, 20 years in the Pacific. Actually, every day was a different day, because every day I was connected with different people from different countries, and I had to build teams really from scratch, bring people together, and you have to go through this journey where, of course, you bring your own culture, your own values, your own personality, but you have to go towards the other people and understand how to bridge this, how to make it unique, and how to make it happen. I think it's valid for finance, but not only for finance, by the way, right? But um, this capacity, I would say, to unlearn a little bit what you learn, and reinvent yourself and get in connection with people was extremely important for me.
I love that expression of unlearning, because I was just thinking back to my early career. I was just wondering, like, why just people I was dealing with couldn't just get this, we were there to drive numbers, so you need to make this decision, right? It's like, and culturally awareness, I was so low, I'd say, like, it was embarrassing looking back on it now. But to your point, I love the word used a few times, unlearning. And when you said that, it reminds me of like a Bruce Lee sort of story or myth. I don't know how true it was, but it's a case of when he was taking on a new student. I think he poured out a can of Coca-Cola or Coke, and he said, gave it to the student, and before he said, before you can, learn from me, you need to empty your glass so you can receive my knowledge. And I think is that sort of when you say unlearning, is that what it is from a
Absolutely.
cultural perspective?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think what was really exciting for me, and I'm not talking only about China. I can mention India, for instance, and other countries, is you are partnering, and I insist on this word, partnering, with people with different logic, with a different conception of what time is about, with different way to, this, right, to work as an individual or as a group, right, with different reactions when facing challenges and so on. So if you approach this only with your own, I would say, tools and techniques and what is in your mind, yes, it can work, absolutely. Why not? But I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure. So you have to learn all of this and forget that, in France we are very Cartesian. What I mean? It's reason is extremely important. Is you push the button, you press the button, and something is happening, and so on. Life is different now, and especially when you go in other countries, when you press the button, something else happen, right? So you need to forget this and say, look, maybe it's different, and maybe someone else knows where to press, how to do it. Someone else know, and this is what you learn is let the flow go as well is extremely important. You need to let things come and say, well, okay, that's maybe not the way I would have done it, but yes, let's listen to this guy. He seems to know, right? So okay, let's trust him. Let's build this, and then you learn how to do this, right? So it's fascinating. It's difficult. Let's be honest. I can remember the first years I spent in China, for instance, or the first time I was exposed to India. I've got many Indian friends, right? So they will enjoy it. I can tell you it was what's going on, right? But then it brought me a lot, and I learned a lot from this really. Since that was good.
Yeah, so when you were smiling a bit there, JP, I'm wondering must be some funny stories that you look back and think, oh, did I really do that, or that you learned. I mean, I think we're kindred spirits because I didn't even have to ask that question. How would you break that word partnering down or that unlearning process down? So thank you for doing that. But I suppose, is there like a story or an event that worked for you, or something to perhaps our audience could avoid? Because more and more these days we're going to have these global interactions with different cultures, and to get the best out of each other, we're going to have to figure out a way that works, a common way that works.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a bit difficult for me to remind a story on the spot, but I would maybe just illustrate it by some of the big meetings we had in. I will try to make it's not a comparison, right? But just say I remember the first time I was in a big sort of board meeting or big meeting in China. So you can imagine a big room with a long table, and you don't know exactly how many people around it, and
It was that big.
everything was extremely codified. You have the boss and the guy just sitting next to the boss and so on. You don't sit, uh, like in Europe, you just come and sit down, right? No,
Yeah.
you have to be at your place, right? And you have to speak up only when it's
Oh.
the right time, the right moment, and so on. And the flow in the way the meeting is done, in the conversation is done, is different, and it's as efficient, and it's not the point, but it's very different. So I remember the first time I was in this kind of meeting, there was a topic which was important for me, right? And I just did it on the Western way. I just say, hey, okay, right, blah 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 blah, and I saw 25 people around the table just. And the big boss who was who is this guy, right? And it worked, right? Because he didn't want to embarrass me. So he said, well, okay. But then someone came out after the meeting and said, no, that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. And yeah, okay. So this is a small anecdote, right? But this was one of my very first contact, and then I said, okay, I need to understand this. And I was mentioning India. I think it's a bit the other way around. I remember meetings when you've got very lively interaction, when everything is compromised, where you think you reach a point, but no, it's only the beginning for a new point to open and a new story and so on. So I remember some meetings where actually we spent literally hours to come to what we thought was an agreement, right? Shook hand and all of this, right? It was late in the afternoon and everything was okay. Just have a good drink. And that late in the evening, customer coming and calling us and say, "Hey guys, why don't we start it again?" I said, "Why?" No, that's the way we do it. And then it was new round of 2, 3, 4 hours of discussion. So these kind of things you just have to let it go and say, well, okay, that's the way we do business here. That's the way people work together. So let's not come with our Cartesian view or rigid views sometime, and let's do it right.
That's super helpful because I think JP, you've just helped some of our audience when they're dealing perhaps in other countries now, maybe hold themselves back, try and observe more, and do things in the right way, or maybe research it a bit more. I mean, worse, at the end of the day, if we do make a cultural mistake, it is possible to recover and learn from it. But it's obviously there's a little bit of embarrassment, but like I would say that as I know personally, as I got older, I've made less and less, and I'm a bit more open to the learning opportunity and unlearning first to take it all in, rather than just going in with the way I'm used to doing things.
Yeah, but here these were just anecdotes, and when you work on a daily basis with a team or with business partners, it's the same actually. Yeah. It's just that it takes more time for you to discover exactly if you're right or if you're wrong. So I think what is very important, or at least what was very important for me, is in all those situations to really connect with sometimes one or two people, local people, right, from the team, and just get a feedback. Is it okay, right? Is it? Do you have any recommendation? Can you help me to navigate through this? And sometimes it can be just the assistant. Sometimes it can be someone who is even not from your team. But getting this understanding on how does it work is extremely important. You cannot invent it yourself. You don't know, right? But it can become extremely complex. And building this one, right, is also something important, especially for when we talk about multicultural things, right? It's not about building a French or European team in China. It's not about building a Chinese team with some international input, I would say. It's building a different team, something which is one and unique by itself. It's something a bit different. So it's a bit of chemical things you need to bring into this. It's a mystery sometimes, but you need to define how we're going together to build something which is not purely on your side, not purely on my side. It's something a bit weird and unique.
Yeah, unique and special. I think as one of our previous guests that we can make magic together. But I think that leads nicely on to another area I wanted to discuss with you, JP. Is when we got speaking originally, and I took away from our first meetings, was just your passion around the mentoring, the coaching, creating great teams, change management. I suppose for you, why did you end up in that space, and why is that important for us now?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually there are two reasons. During my career, and especially in over the past 20 years, uh, I've always been in situation to build teams to to develop people, right? To bring new people in teams and so on. So gradually this question of mentoring and then coaching came out, right? And not only for me, but also people coming to me and asking for, recommendations, suggestions, and so on and so on. So that's one. But, and maybe this is even more important for you, Andrew, um, as a finance professional, I have seen a lot of changes in much more complexity, I would say, in the change management over the past, say, 10 years. When we used to do transformation in finance, say 15 years ago, I'm not saying it was easy, but it was, okay, bringing in new tools, new processes, and
Yeah.
so on. Now it's totally different. It's much more complex, much more open to other functions, and much more open to different things. And I realized a couple of years ago that doing this transformation in a very classical manner, actually, meaning to simplify a top-down manner, okay, doing this and let's do this and that's the way to do it, didn't work. Actually, it didn't work in my own environment. Maybe it's working for other people, but when you are the CFO for 20 countries and as we say, different cultures and a lot of complexity, it's very difficult. So this question of approaching change management differently, bringing a little bit more of coaching skills and approach came out gradually, right? To because if we want to be successful, it has to come from the people. Who am I to tell you, Andrew, what's the way to do it in the UK, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and your team knows.
Yeah.
So coaching is about bringing people, bringing the ideas from people, bringing what you know, and using this in order to change and transform. So that's why I am in this journey now. It's a long journey. I'm still learning, right? But I'm convinced this is one way, not the only one, not the only one, but one way to do it. I'm convinced of this.
JP, like I was always intuitively, I were aligned in terms of why we need to do that. I'm just embarrassed that I never got to the why behind it, which is actually when you just laid it out nicely, the finance transformation projects we were doing 15 years ago when I started my career, maybe 18, 19 years ago, they were so much more simple.
Yeah.
They weren't as complex. They didn't have to cross as many countries, many operating entities, cultures. The technology itself was much more simple, although it might have been revolutionary at the time compared to what we have now. It's much more complex today, and it's really got to be people driven. Like because of that extra complexity, yes, there's obviously top down planning and whatever, particularly around change management, making sure we got things in the right place. But that makes coaching and mentoring much more important, right? It's the people driven.
Yeah, absolutely. You remember all the conversations we had in London recently. You mentioned this one. We were discussing about culture and about all of this. I'm a strong believer in this. Again, I'm not saying this is the miracle solution.
No.
Absolutely not. We need, and we know this in our transformation. We need to work on processes. Absolutely, we need to work on tools. But the human aspect is extremely important. Otherwise, it doesn't work. There is another thing which is important for me as well. Maybe because now I'm getting older but from my perspective, there are a lot of questions for young people. Let's make it simple about the future of finance, the future of the profession, and I was discussing over the weekend with a young guy who is in France. He's 30, yeah, 29, 30 in his first job. And he has a lot of question. He has a lot of ambition as well. But his perception is really that, yeah, he will have to change jobs. I don't know, maybe 10 times over his career. He will have to do totally different things, and is excited about it. But he is, yeah, it's a question for him. So I think also that coaching, mentoring, at least for me, vis-a-vis this new generation, is important. Is a way to, of course, to share what I have learned, but to help them as well, because we don't know exactly what's going to happen in 10 years from now.
We don't. All we know is probably the only thing for sure is that change will be every single day, and it could look an awful lot different
Mm-hmm.
in 10 years' time. And I suppose let's pull from the strengths of the people around us, right? To enjoy the journey. I mean, let's make sure it's fun as well.
Yes, yeah,
so,
absolutely, absolutely.
so JP, I mean, you've been giving us great advice. I'm just curious though, like, what's been the best bit of advice you think you've ever received?
I think the best piece of advice was I was still very junior, and probably after my first job or second job, I can't remember exactly, which was a bit challenging, right? And one of the senior guy came to me. We had sort of debrief and working together, thinking together, and he told me, um, don't feel isolated, don't stay isolated. You don't know what you don't know. So you need to learn with others. You need to find someone who knows better than you know. And from then, no, really, from then,
Oh, I thought.
really grow and so on. And it just mentioned, he said also, and raise your hand. When there is something wrong, don't stay in your box, right? Just open up and say, hey, there is something wrong. I don't know. And I
That
remember this conversation at that time. I was, yeah, 20, 25, 26 maybe. And said, oh, okay, well, okay. And when you get older, yeah, yes, okay, yes, raise your hand. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Andrew, right? It's okay. Help me, right? And it looks stupid, but actually it's extremely important. And that's maybe why, by the way, 30 years later, I'm in this coaching, mentoring, or whatever
it's
journey.
funny. Yeah, yeah. Actually, it was around 25, 26 when I got told pretty much similar. JP, this is we raised that hand. But I got a feeling though for finance professionals, this is quite hard for us to do because I think people look to us to be right all the time, to be accurate, credible. I mean, it doesn't come naturally, I guess. So people have to point this stuff out, right?
No, absolutely. And which brings to a next step, and which is how to educate people. It's not about training, and it's fundamental difference. It's fundamental difference. It's not about training in on the technical side of, I don't know, IFRS stuff, accounting and so on, which are extremely important, right? Extremely important. But it's more about educating people to open up to the outside world, open up to other people, and not being shy and doing this. And it's not easy. It's not natural, especially for accountants and finance people. So I'm short of ideas, to be honest. I don't know, but I think this is no that this is really something important, and especially now that our profession is moving into much more opening, with new tools, with business partners who themselves are educated in finance questions, and they know more about finance than, I don't know, 20 years ago, right? So as a finance guy, we have to open and meet the outside world. So back to your point, I think there is a huge responsibility for the education bodies in finance to bring the young generation to different mindset, different skills. Maybe I don't like this word, but different skills or different attitudes, and it's fundamental. Otherwise, they will stay in their box forever.
Yeah, that is a concern for me too. JP is helping people outside of those boxes. I call them caves, but I like the box analogy probably better. So,
Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but it's you see my point, right? It's
100%, 100%. And actually, would there be any resources you recommend would sort of help people outside to come out from their boxes or so on?
No, I don't know. I think it's today we there are a lot of possibilities to meet other professionals, to stay connected with professional bodies and there are a lot of possibilities. You see, take your podcast, for instance, or it's there are a lot of resources to do. My only recommendation is try to meet different people and don't stay in your own area of connection, and try to meet different people, have different perspectives, learn from different people. It's important. Try to go outside of finance as well. It's extremely important. Which for a lot of reasons. So in terms of resource, I don't know. What I would do is, I think the all the professional and education bodies are doing a great job, much more concrete from what I can see than say 5 years ago or 10 years ago. They are aware of it. The awareness is there. So yeah, let's stay connected with those guys, and use all the social networks and everything to connect and get a broader perspective. That's simply what I would recommend. Don't be shy. Right?
Yeah, don't be. Yeah, I like that one. Don't be shy. Yeah, definitely, JP. And I suppose, should some of our audience wish to continue the conversation, how's the best, or where's the best place to connect with you at?
I think the best place is LinkedIn. It's very classical. People will find my everything they need to contact me. If they find my mobile phone, they can contact on WhatsApp or LinkedIn is definitely the easiest way. And I'm always happy to connect and exchange perspectives, and so don't be shy.
And I suppose, JP, look, you've definitely not been shy in sharing some fantastic advice with us. Really appreciate how you sort of took us through your career. Sounds like it was amazing how you defined partnering for us, broke that down, the unlearning element as well, why change management is key today, that difference now between things being a bit more complex when it comes to finance transformation. Would you have any sort of other parting thoughts for our audience?
As a conclusion, there are maybe two things I would say is one, I already mentioned this: go outside of finance. I mean, of course, stay on your area of expertise and work hard on this, tax, accounting, whatever. It's extremely important, of course, but go outside of finance, meet other people, and even in terms of learning. Don't read or don't watch videos only about finance. Read, I don't know, philosophy, poetry, or whatever. Everything that can give you a broader perspective is extremely important, even in business books and whatever. So I think that's one. And the second one, and this will be my last word, is stay humble. I think humility is something extremely important, because we are in a very complex world. We know this. You mentioned this as well, Andrew. And it's very difficult to assess the consequences of what we are doing. Many things happening at the same time. So stay humble. Accept that things sometimes don't go the way you would love it to go. You would like it to go. Accept failures. Reflect upon it. But stay humble, and then things will come.
That's a great way to wrap up the show. So JP, really appreciate you not being shy and coming on the show with us today. And yeah, thanks so much for investing your time with us today.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That was a lovely conversation. Thank you.
So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to know more about our guests today, their bio, and follow up on the resources mentioned during the show, you can find all the relevant links and more at sitnshow.com. There you'll also be able to get access to earlier shows, read the latest blogs. There's also an opportunity to subscribe to our newsletter, which will give you heads up as to when the next show is coming out, latest events, news, and anything that's going to be relevant to help you have a fun, rewarding and successful career in finance and accounting. And just before you go, we really appreciate your feedback. If there's something we can do better on the show, something that's not working, or something you'd like to see, even a guest you'd like for us to invite onto the show, someone who you think might be able to benefit you more and also the rest of our community, please let me know. You can email me. I'm at andrew@sitnshow.com, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just drop me a message so I know how you found me, and we can connect And really, it's our community that'll make the show. If we keep engaging and driving each other on, we'll keep on building our strength in the numbers. And when all is said and done, if we can do the numbers better and finance better, we'll create more opportunities for ourselves, our friends, our families, our communities and our businesses. So until next time, have a good rest of the week, take care, and let's keep building our strength in the numbers.